Welcome to The Velvet Verdict, honest conversations about how we drift apart and how we find our way back. I'm Velvet. Let's get into it. We have more data on loneliness than any generation before us, yet the feeling remains stubbornly personal. It is a paradox that sits at the very heart of our story. We are wired for deep connection, and we have built a world that promises it, yet so many of us still wake up feeling isolated. Science tells us that our brains are not designed for casual scrolling. They are designed for face-to-face engagement. The very structures that light up when we hold a loved one's hand or share a laugh are the same ones that ache when we are disconnected. We crave the specific kind of recognition that only a human eye can give. But here is where the modern world gets complicated. We have tools that claim to bridge the gap: apps, messages, videos. Yet the feeling of being unseen often stays right where it is. It is as if we are shouting into a room full of people, hoping someone hears us, but the noise makes it harder to be truly heard. This isn't a failure of character on either side of the screen. Men and women are both navigating a landscape that often rewards performance over presence. We are all trying to figure out how to be real in a world that feels increasingly digital. The goal isn't to blame a specific group for this ache, it is to understand the wound itself so we can begin the work of healing it together. We started this journey because we believe that connection is not a luxury, it is a necessity for our survival. And while the path forward isn't always clear, the direction is simple: move from the screen to the person, from the signal to the substance. Let's explore how we can reclaim the bonds that matter most, starting with the one person right beside us. If we're surrounded by people, why does the silence still feel so loud? We have built an era of unprecedented connection, yet loneliness remains a public health crisis. The answer likely isn't that we lack people, it's that we have lost the specific channels where humans actually thrive. We are masters of signaling and novices of substance. We can broadcast our lives to thousands with a single tap, yet struggle to share a quiet moment with the person sitting right next to us. The problem isn't a shortage of potential friends or partners, it is a breakdown in the friction required for real bonding. Algorithms are designed to hook us, not to heal us. They optimize for engagement, which often means keeping us talking at screens rather than with people. This creates a paradox where we are more connected than ever, yet more isolated than before. We have traded the messy, unpredictable, and deeply human act of showing up for the clean, safe, and hollow act of posting. We curate our lives for an audience that never judges us, leaving us with less practice for the real work of being known by another human being. The question, then, is not how to find more people. It is how to unlock the channels that already exist but remain closed. It is about moving from the signal to the substance, from the screen to the person. It requires the courage to be imperfect, to sit in the awkwardness of a first conversation, and to choose a real face over a perfect profile picture. We must reclaim the specific rituals of connection, the shared meal, the face-to-face chat, the unscripted interaction that no algorithm can replicate. The path forward begins with a simple decision: put down the device and pick up the person. NUMBUHA, choose, the foundation of siblings. That bedrock of support is real. About half of U.S. adults who have a sibling, 54%, say they are extremely or very close to at least one of them. 24% feel that bond is extremely close. 30% feel it is very close. If you are a woman, you are slightly more likely to feel that depth of closeness. 57% of women say they are extremely or very close to a sibling, compared to 52% of men. But closeness is not the same as help being given freely. When we face a heavy moment, most of us instinctively reach for the person we trust most. 38% of Americans with a sibling say they would be extremely or very likely to turn to that sibling if they needed emotional support. Yet the flow of support is not perfectly balanced. Only 24% of Americans with siblings say a sibling turns to them for emotional support extremely or very often. This asymmetry is where the quiet work happens. The person who feels the need to reach out often carries the weight of the connection, while the person who is relied upon may not realize how much they are being depended on, or simply may not know how to respond when the moment comes. For men, this gap can feel like a test of strength. Being asked for help, or knowing you are the one others turn to, can trigger the very defenses that isolate us. For women, it can feel like an emotional burden to carry the responsibility of being the steady hand. Neither side is failing, both are protecting themselves in ways that make sense, even if they leave a gap in the middle. The solution is not to demand more from either side. It is to make the exchange explicit. If you are the one who reaches out, state clearly what you need. If you are the one who is relied upon, share your own limits and invite the other person to share theirs. When we name the dynamic, The pressure lifts, and the bond, already there, can finally do its work without the friction of unspoken expectations. What the data shows: the shrinking family unit. The landscape of the American home has shifted beneath our feet. We have more close bonds than ever, yet the very architecture of our families, the guaranteed presence of a sibling, has quietly eroded. This isn't a failure of love, it is a reflection of profound structural changes. More than 4 in 5 children living with 2 parents still have a sibling of some kind. Yet, the nature of that connection has changed. The share of children living only with full siblings dropped significantly, falling from 64.2% in 2009 to 57.14%. This means millions of children now navigate their childhoods knowing that the person who grew up beside them might not share the same parents, or that the bond itself is more complex. The rise of blended families has created a new reality. 17.0% of all children under 18, roughly 12.5 million kids, are living with at least one half-sibling. For many, the person they turn to is a brother or sister by blood, but not by name. It is a testament to the resilience of family, where love is forged in the fires of new unions. Perhaps the most striking shift is in the size of the unit itself. The era of the large family is receding. The share of mothers with 4 or more children collapsed from 40% in 1976 to just 14% in 2014. Simultaneously, the number of mothers with only one child doubled from 11% to 22% in the same period. We have moved from a world where a sibling was a certainty to one where they are a privilege. This structural shift explains why so many of us, despite our best efforts to connect, still feel a hollow space where a built-in companion used to be. The family unit has shrunk, but the need for connection remains exactly the same. The roots: gendered scripts from childhood. As we moved from the certainty of the family unit into adolescence, a distinct pattern began to form, one that would shape how men and women navigate connection for the rest of their lives. While the family structure had changed, the emotional architecture of the teen years solidified into 2 different paths. For many girls, the script involved building dense, layered emotional networks. It became a practice in sharing, a rehearsal for the deep vulnerability that would define their adult friendships. They learned to lean into conversation, to see a friend as a safe harbor where the full weight of their inner life could be placed without judgment. For many boys, the script looked quite different. The retreat was often not a rejection of connection, but a response to a different set of pressures. Boys frequently found themselves retreating to same-gender spaces or solitary activities where the rules of engagement were simpler and more direct. The emotional labor of maintaining a complex web of confidences felt like a burden rather than a gift. Instead of weaving a net of intimate talk, many boys learned to stand side by side, sharing experiences through action or humor, leaving the explicit vulnerability for a later time, or sometimes never fully arriving at it. The result is a landscape where 95% of teen girls report having a close friend for emotional support, compared to 85% of teen boys. It is a gap that feels small in the numbers but carries significant weight in the daily rhythm of life. A clear majority of teens, nearly 6 in 10, say girls have it easier than boys when it comes to having friends to turn to. This isn't about one group being superior. It is about the different tools each side was handed in the workshop of growing up. One side was given the brush to paint a canvas of shared secrets. The other was given a hammer to build a fortress of shared silence. Both are valid ways to survive the storm, but they leave us with different kinds of scars and different kinds of strengths. Both sides held the adult divide. The workshop of growing up leaves us with different kinds of tools. One side was given the brush to paint a canvas of shared secrets. The other was given a hammer to build a fortress of shared silence. Both are valid ways to survive the storm, but they leave us with different kinds of scars and different kinds of strengths. When the storm hits adulthood, the response reveals a quiet divide. Women are far more likely to turn to friends for support, while men are significantly less likely to do so. This creates a silent gap in the support network, not because men lack connection, but because the architecture of their connection is built differently. The data paints a clear picture of this dynamic. 54% of women say they would be extremely or very likely to turn to a friend for emotional support, compared to only 38% of men. When it comes to family members outside the immediate circle, siblings, cousins, aunts, the gap widens further. 44% of women versus 26% of men feel comfortable seeking that kind of closeness. This doesn't mean men don't feel the weight of the world. It means they often carry it in a way that feels less like a conversation and more like a solitary endurance. And yet, the feeling itself is shared. Roughly 1 in 6 Americans say they do not have any close friends at all, while about 1 in 6 feel lonely or isolated all or most of the time. The loneliness is not the exclusive province of one gender. It is a human condition that lands differently on different shoulders. Young men, in particular, face a unique challenge. 25% of American men aged 15 to 34 said they felt lonely a lot of the previous day, a number that far exceeds young women and the global median for their age group. They are building the fortress, but sometimes the walls feel too high to climb out of. The goal is not to tear down the fortress or to force a conversation where none exists. It is to recognize that the brush and the hammer are both tools of survival, and that healing happens when we learn to respect the strength of the builder while gently offering the hand of the painter. We can begin to bridge this gap not by changing who we are, but by understanding how we connect, and by making space for the silence to be met with a listening ear, regardless of which side of the divide we stand on. What it costs us, the dating landscape. When the isolation of the home extends into the public square, the specific mechanics of dating become a minefield for many. It is a landscape where the desire for connection often collides with the fear of rejection, or worse, the fear of causing harm. Among those who explicitly find dating difficult, a distinct gender gap emerges in how that difficulty is felt. Slightly more than half of men, 52%, report that a major reason for their struggle is simply that it is hard to approach people. For women, the number is lower at 35%, but the sentiment remains significant. A third of women feel that the very act of initiating a conversation is a barrier. This hesitation is not born of a lack of interest, but of a deep-seated caution cultivated by modern discourse. The conversation around safety has shifted the social contract, making the simple gesture of walking up to someone feel fraught with consequence. A striking 65% of Americans say that the increased focus on sexual harassment and assault has made it harder for men to know how to interact with someone they are on a date with. This statistic reveals a profound paradox. In an era where we are more educated than ever about the dangers of misconduct, we have inadvertently erected walls around the very interactions that could heal us. For the man, the approach feels like a high-stakes negotiation where a wrong move could be catastrophic. For the woman, the interaction feels guarded, perhaps wary of the very advances that are now scrutinized so heavily. We are left with a society where the tools for connection are present, yet the confidence to use them is eroded. The solution is not to ignore the valid concerns about safety that led to this caution, nor is it to dismiss the genuine difficulty men face in simply starting a conversation. Instead, we must find a way to navigate this new terrain with mutual trust. We can begin to rebuild the courage to approach and the willingness to engage, ensuring that our shared commitment to safety does not become a shared commitment to silence. A direction to heal, reclaiming the how. The path forward isn't about returning to the past, but rather building a bridge between the safety women create and the courage men are learning to summon. It starts with a shift in how we view our own circles of trust. For women, the invitation is to extend the protective warmth of your inner circle outward. The safety you cultivate with friends and family is a rare gift. When you allow men to step into the periphery of that space, not to intrude, but to be welcomed, you give them permission to lower their guard. It is not about sharing every secret, but about creating an environment where a simple, genuine connection feels safe enough to happen. For men, the task is to practice vulnerability with your brothers, even when you don't feel like it. The habit of silence is not a sign of strength. It is a barrier that keeps us all isolated. Start small. Ask, share a worry. Admit a fear. Let your friends see the man behind the stoicism. When you do this, you aren't just helping yourself. You are modeling a new kind of courage for the men around you, showing them that it is okay to be human. This mutual effort breaks the cycle of silence. When women open the door slightly wider, and men step forward with more honesty, the friction of the new relationship landscape begins to smooth out. We move from a world of guarded transactions to one of recognized humanity. Remember, this is a direction, not a prescription. The specific steps are yours to take, guided by your own conscience and the unique dynamics of your life. But the principle remains. Healing happens when we dare to connect, when we trust that the other person is on the same side of the fence, and when we choose to speak up instead of staying quiet. We end with a simple, human truth. The specific steps to bridge the gap are yours to take, guided by your own conscience and the unique dynamics of your life. But the principle remains clear. Healing happens when we dare to connect, when we trust that the person on the other side of the fence is fighting the same battle, and when we choose to speak up instead of staying quiet. Look around you. In every crowded room, every busy street, every digital feed, there are millions of people carrying the exact same weight you are. The statistics show us that loneliness is not a personal failure. It is a condition of our time. The data reveals that our tools for connection have changed, but the fundamental need has not. We have invented new ways to reach out, yet the wound of isolation remains the same across the divide. This is where our story finds its hope. The fact that so many of us feel this way, in so many different ways, proves that we are not broken individuals. We are a broken system. And a system can be fixed. It starts with the quiet realization that your neighbor, your friend, your partner, the person scrolling next to you, they are not an enemy. They are a fellow traveler. Healing does not require you to have all the answers. It only requires you to extend the hand. For the man who fears rejection, the lesson is that vulnerability is not weakness, it is the bridge. For the woman who fears being used, the lesson is that trust is not a surrender, it is an investment. When we stop trying to protect ourselves from every possible hurt, we open the door for real connection to walk through. We are not alone in our loneliness. We are simply too afraid to admit it, and too proud to ask for help. But there is a dignity in honesty, and a strength in reaching out. Let us be the generation that figured out how to put the phone down and look up. Let us be the ones who realize that the most profound connection we can make is simply acknowledging that we are in this together. The tools are in your hands. The door is open. The only thing standing between you and the person who could change your life is the courage to take the first step. Yeah. This episode was written by a human and assisted by AI. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and please tell a friend. If you have a positive comment, please post it. We would love to read them and see if we are helping anyone. And if you have positive feedback, we would like to hear that as well. Thank you, everyone. God bless. See you in the next one.